Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another video. So yesterday we got episode 4 of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and while I did my full episode breakdown, I'm going to give it a day or two before making some more speculation videos and diving into the nitty-gritty of the spoilers. So today we've got a news update, some insane Mandalorian updates, probably the best news for the show that we've had since Star Wars Celebration. An exclusive article has dropped from Entertainment Tonight in which they interviewed the cast of The Mandalorian. We've got Carl Weathers, Pedro Pascal, Giancarlo Esposito, Katie Sackhoff, Emily Swallow and others, all providing tidbits, some new hints and teasers for what we can expect in Season 3. And I've got to say guys, it sounds incredible, not to mention a tease that Grogu is going to discover new Force abilities and become ever more powerful. There is so much juicy information to break down, let's dive straight into it. Much to the delight of the fans, Din Djarin and Grogu are back together in Season 3 of The Mandalorian, which returns to Disney Plus in February of 2023. So right off the bat we have a quote from Pedro Pascal, 3 is even better than the previous one. It's safe to say you're going to love it. And echoing that same sentiment, Carl Weathers says Season 3 is quote fuller and has a lot more heft. He says it's so dense with so much action but also character. And then they ask Katie Sackhoff, who reprises her role as Bo-Katan, to describe the season in one word, and she goes for the word dark. Not only that, but she goes on to say the scope of the new episodes are going to be larger than ever. She says it's an expansion in many ways of last season. And given the recent news that Jon Favreau is already writing Season 4, we have a lot to look forward to. And Giancarlo Esposito, who is reprising his role as Moff Gideon, says it's a season that's got some great ideas, great teasings, and great tips for the future. So as you can see, they're kind of going back and forth between the actors, asking them different questions. So next up, Pedro Pascal is asked about the relationship that Din has to Grogu and how we're going to see that evolve in Season 3 now that Grogu chose Din instead of Luke. Pascal says, what I love is the idea of who's protecting who, because Grogu is discovering more and more of his powers, and it's very important for Mando to nurture it and also to make sure it's harnessed in the right way. And you know, we often speak about Din Djarin and the character development that Mando is going to undergo. We speak about the living waters under the Mines of Mandalore, his relationship to other Mandalorians and his adventures, but we can't forget how Grogu is going to evolve and change as well. At Celebration, Jon Favreau was even asked if we're going to hear Grogu say his first words, and while he did not give any sort of concrete answer, he said he knows what those words are going to be. So they're constantly thinking about where the future is going to lie for this character, and how his Force abilities are still going to inform the journeys that he's going to go on. Even though he didn't choose Luke, that doesn't mean he gave up his Force abilities. They're very much going to be in the picture. Now we've had some leaks from Making Star Wars that say that in Season 3 Grogu is going to be far more autonomous. If you remember the report that said IG-11 is going to be rebuilt to be used as a mech by Grogu. So we can't forget a little green guy. And speaking of Grogu, I think he's also going to play into the Ahsoka series, which is currently filming right now. I can't help but feel that eventually someone like Ezra could play into his story, maybe advance his training further. In either case, in this interview with Entertainment Tonight, Pedro Pascal is talking about the powers that Grogu has and their importance in context of their relationship. As he says, they are protecting each other, but it's also important for Din to know how to nurture that and not to push Grogu in the wrong direction as he matures. So then they return to the legendary Carl Weathers, who as usual is going to be behind and in front of the camera. So the article says after first commissioning Din Djarin in Season 1, Greef Karga, the guild's leader, eventually becomes one of Mando's allies and protects Grogu from being taken by Moff Gideon. In Season 2, Karga is seen again as the Magistrate of Nevarro, where he once again comes to the aid of the Mandalorian and Grogu as they continue to be chased down by Gideon. But when it comes to Season 3 and reprising his role as Karga again, Weathers says the new episodes, quote, had a lot more opportunity for depth. Each of those episodes has so much story within their own personal story, and as a director on the show once again, he is helming one episode of the 3rd season, and he said he had a lot of fun digging deeper into the story as a director. He goes on to say, quote, as an audience you get to see just little glimmers of things that we didn't realize about them, and he loves to, quote, play with some of that stuff. Now, as you guys probably know, there were 2 official teasers shown at Celebration, 2 montages that kind of act as teaser trailers, and in one of them, we're taken back to the planet of Nevarro, where where we see Magistrate Greef Karga sporting some majestic new red robes. He simply looked awesome. I have a lot of love for Carl Weathers, and even more so after season 2, because he directed my all-time favourite episode of The Mandalorian, Chapter 12, The Siege, and now that I think about it, it might be my favourite episode of anything on Disney+. Hats off to Carl Weathers, I so admire his remarkable talents. And so then ET move on to Moff Gideon, played by Giancarlo Esposito. Now as we know, Giancarlo is the best man in the industry to accidentally reveal spoilers. He's done so many times in the past, and now he's teased what we can expect from his character in the 3rd season. After attempting to hunt down Grogu in the first 2 seasons, the Imperial adversary nearly succeeds in capturing the child. But it's not long until our heroes catch up to Gideon, and as we saw in season 2, Cara Dune knocks him out, and he is now imprisoned under the New Republic. But Giancarlo teases he's probably going to escape in season 3. In his own words, he says, yes, it's assumed he's behind bars. I think we could have an opportunity to see him escape those chains that bind him. He went on to say, we want to see a guy who is a mastermind, who has an idea for the future that no one else has, and so we want to know what that is, and we want to know if that's good or bad. The actor concludes, I keep holding on to this idea that he really wants to save the galaxy. Of course, everyone does, but everyone assumes he just wants to control it. So let's find out if that's true or not. Now, if you guys have missed my last 3 Mandalorian updates, you really want to go check those out, because in there Giancarlo Esposito also talks about other Imperial remnants coming into the story. He basically said the other week he's not the only one out there, and he's not talking about Grand Admiral Thrawn, but rather other Imperial remnants who want different things than he does, those who don't necessarily want to clone Palpatine. And according to Esposito, that plot thread is going to play into this upcoming 3rd season. But next up in this article, guys, they interview Emily Swallow, the armorer, who quickly became such a fan favourite. The other day, Star Wars Newsnet had the exclusive that she's going to play a larger role in the 3rd season, and that the character's identity might be revealed. But in this interview now, Emily says of her character that she's going to learn from Din, rather than the other way around. In other words, she might become more lenient and more accepting of other Mandalorians. Let's see what she said. We've seen her guide Mando, but he's also surprised her, and she's rolled with that, and she's been open to seeing where he leads her, specifically initially being cautious of Grogu being half Jedi, half Mandalorian. As the series progresses, I think we'll continue to see as he makes discoveries on this journey that she's open to seeing what she learns from that. And finally, a quick word from Katie Sackhoff, Bo-Katan herself. She says, I'm just excited to see what she's up to, and based on the teaser footage at Celebration, it's clear that Kreese and Din Djarin have a lot of unfinished business. Not only that, but she's also on her own journey. Teasing what's to come, Sackhoff ominously says she's not done. Really exciting stuff. And another huge update for The Mandalorian, guys. Temuera Morrison has said Boba Fett's story is continuing in The Mandalorian Season 3. So even if we don't get that 2nd season of the Book of Boba Fett, we are going to see more of him and Fennec Shand in Mando. And hinting that he didn't really like the way his character was treated in the Book of Boba Fett, Temuera Morrison says, we've got to see the old Boba Fett. We reintroduced him, but I think it's time to get him back to his old badass ways. No two ways around that, and I completely agree with him. I mean, Boba in The Mandalorian Season 2 was phenomenal, much better than the Book of Boba in my personal opinion. So there you have it, my dear friends. Those are the updates for The Mandalorian Season 3, but just quickly, we also have an Ahsoka update. Darth Vader is going to appear. Now you might be saying we already knew that. Well, not really. We knew Hayden Christensen was going to be involved, and we assumed it was going to be as Anakin's Force Ghost or Anakin in flashbacks. And while those 2 options are still very much on the table, we are going to get flashback scenes with Darth Vader, and if we're lucky, we might even see Twilight of the Apprentice or that duel in a live-action flashback. That would be a dream come true for all Star Wars Rebels fans. But just let this sink in, Kenobi is not the last place that we're going to see Vader in action. We often talk about 2022 being a great year for Star Wars, but next year is set to be incredible as well. Not only are we getting The Mandalorian Season 3, but also Ahsoka. And so finally, my dear friends, something a bit out of left field. Colin Trevorrow has spoken with Uproxx about his experience on Duel of the Fates, the original script for Star Wars Episode 9. He was going to be the original director, but that was scrapped and J.J. Abrams came in and wrote The Rise of Skywalker. Now, the original script for Episode 9 Duel of the Fates has been leaked online a couple of years ago, and to this day it is so often talked about as the better version of Episode 9. I must admit, I'm on that train. While it was a little bit messy, I much prefer the story of that to what we eventually got in The Rise of Skywalker. Now, Colin Trevorrow's most recent project is, of course, Jurassic World Dominion. I'm a massive Jurassic Park fan. If you are as well, let me know in the comments down below. But anyway, in this new interview with Uproxx, he reflects on his experience with Star Wars. The interviewer says, "I know there is no way you're ever going to tell me how your Star Wars Episode 9 treatment leaked on the internet, but I'm curious because I know you paid attention to the reaction. People seemed really into it, and that had to feel nice." And he said, "It's complicated." It was complicated, but honestly, I mean, since we're talking now in 2022, I can say honestly I'm very grateful to Kathy for recognizing that she and I were never going to make a movie that we were both proud of together. And she's been doing this for so long, and she cares about me and I care about her and her family. And later he goes on to say, "I'm deeply, deeply satisfied for having done this. I appreciate that she had the wisdom to see something that honestly, I'm not sure I could have seen because I was so dialed into the story I wanted to tell. And you know what, it's been a few years, whatever, but I do go back and sometimes think, what could have been?" But it was awesome to see Colin talk about this. He often avoids the question of the script, so this is his answer. Very diplomatic and very press friendly. But what do you guys think? If you read the script for Duel of the Fates, are you a fan, and do you think you would have preferred that story to what we eventually got? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and what do you make of the Mandalorian updates as well? If you missed yesterday's episode breakdown of Kenobi episode 4, go and check that out. But otherwise guys, that brings us to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg. Have a good one.